Hi everyone, this is Nathan from Snap. Today we're going to be looking at the different ways that folders can be used to store your surveys and forms and how this allows for the efficient sharing of your work with colleagues, clients and stakeholders. We're going to be using SnapXMP, our new seamlessly integrated platform, which has got three main components to it. Snap Desktop, which is installed on your PC or laptop, Snap Online, our cloud-based application, and for those of you who might be doing any field-based interviewing, so face-to-face interviewing, we also have the Snap Offline Interviewer app. Today we're going to be using Snap Desktop and Snap Online, plus I'll be talking a little bit about the Offline Interviewer app. Now there are different ways of using folders within SnapXMP, and there isn't really a right or wrong way of doing so. A lot of it will come down to how you are set up within your company or organisation, and at the end of the day it's also down to personal choice. It might be that you're the sole user of Snap, in which case it's nice and simple. You might work as part of a larger team that are all using Snap, so you all need to make sure that you've got access to each other's work. Or perhaps you're part of a larger organisation with lots of different teams all using Snap, but with one overarching team which has got overall responsibility for surveys taking place. Regardless of your setup though, you may have a requirement to share elements of your work. So this could be to share your analysis with colleagues, clients or stakeholders. And you might outsource your questionnaire design to an external agency, so you might wish to share your branded design template. Or if you're running face-to-face interviews using our Offline Interviewer app, then you would need to share your surveys with your interviewers. All of this is made easier using folders. A reminder before we head into the software that SnapXMP is the platform name for the different bits of software sitting underneath, so Snap Desktop, Snap Online and the Snap Offline Interviewer app. These are all fully synchronized, so when I'm talking about folders and the creation of a folder, this folder structure is replicated throughout the XMP platform. Okay, let's head into the software. Let's begin with a nice simple situation where we perhaps just have one user within an organisation, so no other users at that company, and it's just a case of creating folders which make sense to that individual user. So first thing just to remind everyone is that we are logged in to Snap Desktop, so if I go to the account icon you can see that I'm actually logged in as NP Training 7, and if I click OK, and then it's just a case of going into your work, which is the default folder, and potentially creating some additional folders. One suggested way of looking at this might be to break it down into years, so I could have a year for a folder for last year perhaps, and then a folder for this year, so 2022, and then it might be that you do some internal surveys and some external surveys, so again I can right click on that 2022 folder and just create a new one for perhaps internal, and then a separate folder for any external surveys. So essentially you're just recreating perhaps the folder structure which you might have on your network drive. All our systems are synchronized, so if I now go and log into this account in Snap Online, again logging in as NP Training 7, and you'll see when it loads in that I've got those folders which I just created. We've also got the option to share these folders, but we'll make use of that a little bit later. So that's working with folders at an individual level where there's no need to work with colleagues or clients, etc. Let's now jump to the other end of the scale where perhaps we're a much larger organisation which perhaps has a survey insights team, so a team that looks after multiple departments and is ultimately responsible for all the surveys within the organisation, and then lots of smaller teams that do their own work as well. So I'm going to log out of this account and I'll log in to a different account, this one videos@snapsurveys.com. So for my setup today, I'm going to pretend that my videos@snapsurveys.com is actually an admin account, and that admin account has been used to set up all of these subfolders. So I've got my three subfolders: the children's care team, the internal comms team, and the adult education team. So they're my sort of sub-departments, and then the main audience insight team are the ones who have overall responsibility for these three sub-teams. Within the Audience Insight team there's 2 members of staff, and if I go up to my main folder, so which covers all the subfolders underneath, and go to Shares, you can see that within the Audience Insight team I've got my 2 main users. I have NP Training 9 and NP Training Master, so they have complete control and complete access to everything within here, so all 5 subfolders. As you can see, that one of those subfolders is a templates folder containing a number of different survey templates. So if the Audience Insight team gained a new member of staff, it would be a case of me going into the Shares folder of your work, adding a new user, adding their username, so in my case today bob@snap.com. I want Bob to have full permissions. We'll talk more about permissions a little bit later, but full researcher permissions, and click Save. So now Bob has access to all of these subfolders as well. If I now log in as one of these Audience Insight team members, so I'm going to log in as NP Training 9, so I'll log out of this person and log in as NP Training 9. You can see I have a folder set up for some personal work, so I run a couple of football teams. So these are surveys for my own personal work, nothing to do with the organisation, so there's no way I want my colleagues seeing that I'm doing my own personal work. So these folders are not shared. But if I then want to go and look at all the work for the actual organisation, I have the Shared With You folder. At the top you can see the videos at snapsurveys.com, so that admin account has shared some work with me. Potentially there might be a drop down with a number of different people that have shared work with you, but the admin account has shared the Your Work folder, and that Your Work folder contains all of those subfolders that we saw earlier. So NP Training 9, so one of the Insight team, has access to all the work that takes place within all the sub-teams within the company. As mentioned, NP Training 9 has ultimate responsibility for all the sub-departments, but they also run their own surveys, so there's a folder in there called Audience Insight Team, so only they have access to this folder. Again, a bit like I did earlier, I've got some internal or external surveys and some staff surveys. So if I want to do some work, it's a case of creating a survey in the relevant folder. If on the other hand I log in as someone perhaps from the adult education team, so if I go to a different browser and this person's logged in as NP Training 1, you can see this person doesn't have any of their own subfolders because they're not doing any personal work, which they shouldn't be doing. They're just making use of the folders which have been shared with them by the admin team. So again, I've got Shared With You. This person's got access to their team folder. They've also got access to the templates. So if you're designing a survey, of course we want to make sure that they're designing a survey using the branded templates. So we've got a number of different templates in there which they can make use of. But they will be creating work in their adult education team. They would create a new survey. They can make use of the templates which are supplied with Snap, or they can make use of their own user templates. And again, you can see here I've got a different template for my internal surveys, and then perhaps that might be one for external surveys. So in this setup I have a master account which was videos, which is the one which was used to create all of the folders. If I just log back into the training account or the admin account, so that was the videos one. So this account was used to create all of the folders. I shared everything in here with the 2 members of, in fact 3 members, we added a 3rd person. And they had access to all of these folders, and then it's just a case of when all the other members of staff from the other teams log in, it's important that when they log in they are making use of the Shared With You surveys. If I do just quickly move back to one of the main user accounts, so I'm going to move back into Training 9, so one of the Insight teams. So this was the person that had access to everything, but they also had created their own personal folder which they didn't want anyone seeing. So if I had a need to share this individual survey, I can click on that survey, go to shares, and then share that individual survey. So with sharing, you have the option to share folders, and you also have the option to share individual surveys and also templates. Moving back to the adult education team. This department might have a need to do some face-to-face interviewing, so using the Snap Offline Interviewer app. So I might decide that I want to create some subfolders. So I might create a new folder. So I might have a couple of teams, interviewers A and interviewers B. So I'm going to create another subfolder as well. And I want interviewers A to go out in the field and complete that survey, and I want interviewers B to go out in the field and complete that survey. It's then just a case of setting up the permissions for that folder or that individual survey, but I'm going to set it up at the folder level. You can see I've already got a number of people that have access to this survey, including the people in my department, so NP Training 1 and NP Training 2. I have the 3 admin accounts, so Bob, NP Training 9 and NP Training Master. They are the members of the Insight team which have overall access to all surveys. But I now wish to give access to this survey to one of my interviewers, so I will add a new user. Tony's going to do some interviewing for me. So Tony will download the Snap Offline Interviewer app, create an account, and I will set them up as an interviewer. So whilst all these people have access as a researcher, so they can stop and start the survey, they can edit the survey, Tony at the bottom has access to log in using the app, and they can conduct the survey, so they can run interviews. I could also add the public services survey into that same interviews A folder. But obviously by moving it from interview B to interview A, anyone that used to have access to it will no longer have access to it. Okay, so if I move back into my main admin account, so back into videos at snapsurveys.com. So again, just to confirm, this is a little bit like an administrator's account, so there's no surveys that are sort of created from fresh in this account. This is just used to create those subfolders, and then we give permission to say who has access to those subfolders. And as I said, you can share surveys, you can also give access to particular templates. And on that note, if I go into the shares folder for my templates, it's shared with all of my members of staff across the organisation. If I move into one of my individual templates and look at the shares on that one, it has an additional share on there for someone called Adam at surveysetup.com. So I've outsourced some of my design work to Adam, and I want to make sure that when Adam designs a survey, he has access to this particular individual template. He doesn't need access to these ones, which is why I haven't given them full access to the folder. I've just given them access to that individual resource. Now, I've obviously been showing you everything within Snap Online, just to confirm again that everything we've done is also synchronized within here. So I'm on my videos at snapsurveys.com. Just refresh. So this survey, this account does not have anything shared with it. If I move into an account such as NP Training 1, and log into that account, you can see that I've got a number of different people who've shared stuff with me, including the admin account, and you can see everything we looked at earlier is replicated within here. And in this type of setup, really the key thing to take from this is that all your work is done from the shared with you folder. This individual shouldn't be working in the your work folder because no one else will be able to see what they've done. So for this user, again, just to confirm, when they open up Snap, their first port of call would be shared with you. They then decide which folder it is that they want to work in, so probably in this case the adult education folder. Click on the plus. Choose your template, so whether it's the default ones or the ones which are shared with you, and then go ahead and create your new survey. Okay, so that was everything that I was planning on showing you today. As you've seen, folders are a really useful tool to enable you to keep your surveys and forms tidy, but they also aid in the efficient use of Snap, especially when working in teams and sharing your work. How you make use of folders is very much down to you though, but hopefully this video has given you a few things to consider when choosing the best way to work for you and your organisation. We've touched upon sharing today. There is a related video on our support hub which takes you through in a bit more detail the things that I've discussed today. Plus there's lots of other short videos and webinars that I'd certainly recommend having a look at. And of course, do remember that we are always on the end of the phone or email, whether that's accessing our help desk or perhaps booking onto one of our training courses. Or if you are short of resources or would just like a helping hand, our research department can assist you with any aspect of your project, from simple data entry jobs right through to complete project management. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.